Welcome to video number 4. Let's start the next step, which is setting up basic HTML and CSS. Since this HTML and CSS is going to be displayed by the browser and is going to be used throughout the website, that's why I'm setting it up so early in the process. I want to make sure that everything's displaying correctly before I start integrating my PHP code. I'm going to be starting with the homepage HTML and CSS. I'll be focusing on the homepage HTML in this video and the CSS in the next one. And there will be additional HTML and CSS to write that I'll do later in the course for category pages, for product details pages, and for the cart, but I'll come back to that in future videos. The files that we're going to be working with today are within the app folder within views. Specifically, they're going to be vpublichome.php, and I'll also be working with the two files within the includes folder, public footer and public header. And I've used these includes because I think it's important that we have an easy way to update these headers and footers. They're going to stay consistent throughout our entire design, so it makes it easy if we want to make a minor change, we make it in one file rather than across multiple files. So I'm going to start with the public header. And I do expect, as I mentioned on in earlier videos, that you have a pretty basic understanding of HTML and CSS. So hopefully none of the stuff that I'll be demonstrating here will be confusing. Also, feel free to download the source files and simply copy and paste if that's a little bit easier and faster for you, but hopefully this will be helpful to some people. Anyway, so to get back to what I was working on, I'm going to be working with the public header file, and I'm going to start out with a doc type. And I'm starting out just with a standard HTML5 doc type. You're welcome to use something else if you're more comfortable with that, but this is just the standard one that I've been using. Then an HTML tag, a head, and a title. And in this particular case, a lot of the stuff that I'll be doing is going to be automated later. For example, the title is going to be pulled in using PHP, but I'm just going to use filler text for some of these spots, and I'll come back and modify this file later. So I'm just putting in a sample title, my online store. Then I'll need meta information. And I'm going to fill out the content type, which is text/HTML. And I'm going to set the char set as well, like so. And then below that, I'm going to add a link to our CSS file. And that's going to link to resources, CSS, style.css. And the media type is going to be all. And the rel is going to be style sheet, and the type is going to be text CSS. So I can close off the head, and next we'll do the body. I'm going to leave a blank class. I'm going to come back and fill that in later, but we don't exactly need to set a class on this for the moment. Now within the body, I'm going to have a div with an ID of wrapper. Then I'm going to have a div with a class of secondary nav. And this secondary nav is going to hold the link to our shopping cart and display totals for the number of items in the shopping cart and the total cost of the items in the shopping cart. So this will be automated in later videos, but for the moment I'm going to use strong. I'm going to say 0 items, and I'm going to just put the cost in cart. And then I'm going to put 2 spaces with a non-breaking space here, the NBSP. Since hopefully you know that simply doing 2 spaces and then putting text, this actually won't insert 2 spaces. This will only insert 1 just because of the way spaces collapse. So I'm going to use 2 of those. So I have a space, a non-breaking space, divider character, space, a non-breaking space, and finally we're going to add a link. And we're going to use a little bit of PHP here. I'm going to echo out the site path constant and link to cart.php. Like so. And that'll close off our secondary nav. Then let's add an h1 tag, and we're going to use PHP to echo out the site name. And below that, we're going to have an unordered list with a class of nav. And in later videos, once we get to the categories model that we're going to be building out, we're going to automate this so that this navigation lists all the categories that are in our store. But for the moment, this will work. So I'm going to have a list item. I'm going to have the first item have a class of active. And this will indicate the current active item in this navigation. And then I'm going to simply have a link. This one I'll just call all items. And then I'm going to copy the line above, paste it in. I'll take out the class. I'm just going to call this category 1 for now, and we'll come back to this. So that finishes off the header file. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Let me just glance over it and make sure I didn't make any typos. Hopefully not, but I'll come back to it if I have. Now let's jump over to the public footer file. And just to make sure I have my tab space, my tab organization correct, just going to make sure I have the right number of tabs in here. I'm going to have a div with an ID of footer. Within this div, we're going to add the copyright symbol, like so. We're going to use a little bit of PHP to echo out the current year. We use the date function for that with a y argument. And then we're going to add a 1 space, and then we're also going to echo out the site name. Like so. When we close off our footer, we're going to close off this div, and that relates back to our wrapper div that we set here. And then we're going to close off the body and close off the HTML, like so. So now let's go to vpublichome.php, and we're going to do 2 things. We're going to start out with an include, and we're going to include our header file. So include public_header.php. And I'm going to copy this line, paste it, and this time we're going to include the footer. And then within those 2, I'm going to add a div with an ID of content. I'm going to have an h2. I'm simply going to call this all products. And then I'm going to have an unordered list with a class of products. And we're going to use the unordered list to display the preview thumbnails of all of the products in our store, the product title, price, and a small add to cart button. And as I've said before, this will also be automated once we get to that point in this course, but I'm just going to make it static for the moment so we can see it in action and make sure everything's styled correctly. So we're going to need a list item. within this list item, we're going to have a link, and I'm just going to leave it blank for now. That link is going to be surrounding an image, and I'm going to use a little bit of PHP to echo the image path. And then product underscore, I think I'm going to go with beachtoys.jpg. And we're linking out to this file down here. So we have that. I'm going to add an alt, and I'm going to use Beach Toys. Close out the link. And then below that image, let's also add a line break. Or, excuse me, let's not close out the link just yet. Let's add a line break here. We're going to add in the title of the product, which is simply going to be Strong Beach Toys. And then after the strong is complete, then we're going to close out the link, like so. Then another line break, and then the price. I'm just going to say $8.99. A line break, and then a link to our add to cart button. And we're going to give it a class, which is going to be button underscore SML for small. Like so. And that will display one product in our cart. Just for practice sake and for showing multiple products at a time, I'm going to copy this list item. I'm going to paste it a couple times. I'm going to paste it 5 times total. So we're displaying 5 products. And on the 4th one, so 1, 2, 3, 4, on this list item, I'm going to add a class of last. And that's going to make sure that items are aligned properly. I'll show you what I mean in the next video when I talk about the CSS. So let's save this file. I believe we're pretty close to wrapping up this video, so as the last thing, let's go to our index.php. And after our include, let's also do another include, and let's include that view file. So within app, views, v, public home.php. So I'll save that. Let's go preview it. And I must have misspelled something. Let's open up vPublic Home, and that's what it is. We misspelled the includes. Let's save that, refresh the page, and hopefully that'll fix things. There we go. So we have our basic HTML in place, and we're going to come back in the next video and style it with some CSS.